Asked me about being in military prison, posted on somethingawful.com by hiding from Goro on June 5th, 2006. A couple people have asked me to post this thread for a while, so here goes. I was confined in Navy and multi-branch brigs from mid-2001 until end of 2002/beginning of 2003 timeframe. I plead guilty to conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance, Article 112A, disobeying orders, Article 92, and witness intimidation, covered under an Article 134 plea. The amount of drugs in question was 4 e-pills worth about $32. Yeah. I was locked up in Hawaii for the first part and Miramar, California for the second part. The same base Top Gun was set and filmed at. My trial lasted about 40 minutes, as court-martials tend to do. The one in Hawaii was an open bay facility, basically a big room with a bunch of beds and a desk. Someone always sits at the desk, day and night, to watch you. During the day, there are multiple guards in the room with you. One wall is mirrored. On the other side of the mirror is the control room. All the doors are controlled from inside there, so when they want to open a door, they go on the radio and tell them their handle, call sign, and the door number, so like Control, Victor 4, 94, please. And then the lock opens loudly. It's like a gunshot and was one of the hardest things to get used to. The other rooms were a cafeteria, a cell block with glass cell doors that you either go as punishment or when you first get there. When you first get there, everyone has to spend 3 days in a cell to make sure you're not dangerous or a suicide risk. There was one guy that was always in there because he killed a couple people, so he couldn't come to the dorm with us. He was cool, though, on the off chance you get to talk to him. Laid back and kinda short-thin, definitely not the stereotype of a double murderer. The one in Cali I spent most of my time in, there were individual cells there, which was great. Sometimes you had a cellie because they were renovating another Marine jail at the time in Pendleton, so all their guys were at Miramar with us. Lot more freedom in that one. Unlike Hawaii, where you had to ask permission for absolutely everything, including walking across this blue tape that was everywhere, to teach you how to respect authority or something. I mean everything. Had to ask permission to get a chair, to sit in it, to get up, to put the chair away, to get a drink of water, any and everything, including taking a piss and sometimes flushing the urinal, depending on if the guard was a dick. Cali was more like real jail, lots more prisoners, so they didn't micromanage you as much. Cell doors were loud rear-end electric ones like the doors in Hawaii, so when they wanted you to come out, they just pushed the button for your door, rapid fire, and it was the loudest and most annoying noise you can possibly imagine. As in, if I concentrate, I can hear that sound in my head. Messed up thing about Cali was that is the one place in the military justice system where they send all the sex offenders for treatment. So all the pedos and kiddie porn psychos go there for their 2-year program before they go to Leavenworth to do their big stretch, although some of them stay there all the time. The military will also cut your sentence in half if you volunteer for the weird treatment program, so like this dude Randy, who looked like the bad guy from Ghostbusters, 2 raped his son almost every day from age 10 till age 13 and only got 10 years. Yeah, he wasn't even the worst. They kept them separated from the rest of us mostly to minimize them getting messed with. The majority of people in there were for drugs, some for AWOL and assault, and then only a couple for random stuff like car theft, fraud, and one guy I knew was in for counterfeiting. While I was in there, I got clean through Narcotics Anonymous and haven't touched coke or even smoked weed since I got out. Tried E twice in the last 4 years. Both times didn't really do anything for me, so I pretty much consider myself reformed, rehabilitated. I still drink, although not to oblivion like I did before I went in. Didn't have too much trouble getting jobs either. As long as I was honest with employers, they didn't seem to mind. My last job said it didn't even show up on their background check, and next year will be the 7-year mark, so I won't have to disclose it at most places. Got in a couple fights, and as a result got tuned up by the staff members. But it wasn't like Oz or anything. The brig isn't necessarily pound me in the rear end prison. Although there were a couple rapes while I was in there, they happened on other tiers and the rapists were all caught and punished severely, like adding 7+ years to their sentence. So, in that respect, it's a lot different from, say, a state prison. The most ironic thing is that my dad is a retired corrections worker, although we rebuilt our relationship pretty quickly after I got out, so feel free to ask away.
Out of the 4 classic motivations for imprisoning people, which ones and what proportion did you observe in the facility where you spent the most time?
The focus in Hawaii was punishment. The focus in Cali was definitely rehabilitation. Since the majority of us were drug cases, also they had big programs for the sex offenders. There was a sense of apathy about the SOs, though. Even the caseworkers and guards would say that they would probably reoffend. All the drug theft, etc. guys I kept in touch with, after they or I got out, wound up getting jobs, etc. Don't know for sure about the SOs, never talked to them inside, sure as hell want nothing to do with them on the outside, especially since I have a kid myself. Hawaii was a short-term place, though. Most guys there would be going back to the fleet, so they just basically needed to be slapped upside the head for their DUI or AWOL and taught to follow orders. Hence, all the obedience training stuff they did. After my trial, I was only there for a couple weeks. Before they sent me to Cali, everyone that was going to do more than a year and get kicked out got sent to Cali, Charleston, or some other long-term facility.
Edit. Do you think that you are essentially the same person that you were when you did what got you locked up, and now maybe you have more perspective, or do you think you have undergone a more serious change? What I mean is, do you think, wow, I wish I could take back those actions? Oh well, or is it more like, I used to be a criminal, but now I'm not? Edit 2 because drugs are one of my pet issues. Did you actually harm anyone, or just break the prohibition? If the latter, what are your feelings on the fact that people get locked up for that? Is it appropriate, helpful?
1. I'm not the same person. I don't take anything for granted now, and I am a lot more responsible. I don't even speed anymore. My goal is to never even talk to a police officer for the rest of my life, if I can help it. If I could take it back, I certainly would. The worst part about it was seeing my co-workers, arch boss, and friends, family so disappointed in me. That's the worst feeling ever, so yes, I would like to not have experienced that, and more importantly, would like to have them not have had to go through that. 2. It's different for me because I was in the military. I understand why it's zero tolerance in the military. You can't have a guy on the flight deck using drugs, etc. Plus, they beat it into your head that it's zero tolerance every day in the military, so yeah, I'd say I deserved it for being stupid. I wouldn't say I harmed anyone, although I get the idea that people can OD and such. I think that the drug war is a big waste of time and money, but I also think that certain professions like military airplane pilots, etc., need to be drug-free, and I support them being fired or mandatory treatment if they do drugs. Prison probably isn't necessary, but I can't honestly say that if I hadn't gotten punished so harshly that I wouldn't still be doing the same thing. If that makes sense?
The drug thing and disobeying orders charges I can understand, but what's the deal with the witness intimidation?
The guy that turned me in was Jay. After I got locked up, someone went to Jay's house, pointed a gun at the door, had a friend take a Polaroid of him, and left the Polaroid on his wife's windshield. I honestly had nothing to do with it. He turned in multiple people. But since I had already refused to cooperate, turn anyone in, all my friends were civilians, so I couldn't have turned in anyone even if I wanted to. They said the circumstantial evidence was too strong, even though all my visits and phone calls were monitored. And in any case, I had to accept that charge to get the plea deal. Otherwise, it was a 48-month bit and a dishonorable discharge instead of the bad conduct discharge I got. The order was don't do drugs. Basically, any time you catch a case in the military, you'll get the disobeying orders tacked on.
Did they make you do any messed up tasks or ridiculous ones? I've heard stories of the military jail in Edmonton that one private MP was caught selling drugs, so the guards, all MPs, woke him up every hour to do 5 minutes of something, 24/7 for months on end.
In Hawaii, you wake up, clean for like an hour, then go out and salute the colors, flag. Then you clean, clean, clean till breakfast, then clean, clean, clean till lunch. We're talking like 12 guys cleaning a room, maybe 300 square feet. So you're basically just moving a rag around, trying to talk quiet enough to your buddies that they can't hear you, because no talking. It's never dirty because it gets cleaned for hours every day. Then quiet time, which means you can sit at these card tables and talk quietly or read educational materials. Some guards wouldn't let you talk. After dinner, you can play cards or watch TV for 2 hours. There's also recreation call where you can go outside and run or lift weights and listen to radio-only Walkmans for 1 hour. Then it's inside for quiet time and maybe TV if they're cool until lights out. They also had us strip and wax the floors of the entire building once every 2 weeks, and polish and buff the floors of the whole building twice a day. Sometimes you worked in the kitchen washing dishes like I did for most of the time I was there, and the cooks were cool and would turn on the radio and let you talk to the other prisoners working the kitchen. They would come in and rip your bed apart looking for contraband all the time. So that ate up a lot of time. Your bed had to be made a certain way or you got busted, basically like boot camp. In Cali, there wasn't any of that. They tossed your cell every once in a while, but everyone had a job like kitchen, night janitor. I did both of those. Day janitor, groundskeeping, stuff like that. They also took us in chains to do work on other bases or parts of Miramar. I was with a crew that renovated the offices of the Blue Angles demonstration flying team. Didn't see any planes or pilots, but their civilian secretaries gave us candy or ice cream and let us smoke cigarettes when the guards left for a while. That was awesome. We all got segregated, though, because the guards smelled tea smoke. It was worth 3 days of seg for a smoke, though. After a few days, the female secretaries would wear extra perfume skirts a little shorter than normal to get attention from the cons, but they were all pretty busted up, even to a guy who'd been locked up for a while. The long-timers liked it, though. I guess after 5 to 10 years, anything looks good.
Does pressure like this to take plea deals amount to compulsion to bear witness against yourself, in your opinion? Why or why not? I'm really worried about the plea system artificially inflating clearance rates for law enforcement.
It ain't law and order, dude. You're 19 to 21. You have a choice between a long time or a short time. You'll sign anything if you haven't been in trouble before. Plus, it's the military. The justice system is a lot different. Edit. Not to sound like a dick, but if I lock you up for 6 weeks and never tell you when you're getting out except to say, well, the max for all this poo-poo is like over 15 years, better watch out. And then I come and give you the choice between 4 years and 2 years, you'll admit to anything to get the 2. Anything. Lock yourself in your bathroom for 6 weeks, you'll see.
Generally speaking, if you are offered the choice of Article 15 or courts-martial, you should always take the Article 15. If you are offered a plea and you are guilty, you really should take it because the maximum punishment a panel can give you is usually so far out there, death or life in prison, that the risk of the sentence being much greater than the plea deal is a very real concern. In a case like this, if the panel believed in the witness intimidation part, the punishment would probably exceed the deal. Not to steal the OP's thunder, but a soldier of mine went to Leavenworth for 11 years for 2 counts of rape and 2 counts of assault, so I can provide some of the view from the other side of the system.
I would have given a sponge bath to that fat thing from Blade to have a choice for an Article 15 in the Navy, they call it, Captain's Mast. But unfortunately, I didn't have a choice. I didn't even get a chance for special court-martial. My command pushed for and got a general court-martial, which is why I was in for over 1 year. The other piece of advice to go along with yours is always go with judge alone. And if you do choose a jury, suicide, never choose the 1/3 enlisted makeup option. Forgot to add, one of the worst parts about it was when I transferred to Kelly. The 2 guys with me let me fly without chains. This was in November 2001, and people in the airport and plane would try to talk to us about America standing united and support the troops stuff. It made me feel like the lowest form of life on earth, seeing the respect that people had for the military and knowing I was a fuck-up inmate. I couldn't even look any of those people in the eye. It was horrible, and yes, I feel I deserve every bit of it. Like it's beyond wanting to cry. It's like this total emptiness inside you. There's no way to describe it. That's one part that sticks with me even today. Makes me respect those who've served honorably a lot, though. I think even more than I would if I hadn't gotten kicked out. To go along with that, when the towers went down on September 11th, it was really early in the morning in Hawaii. They woke us up and turned on the TV so we could watch. A couple hours later, the OIC, officer in charge, came in and stood us all at attention and was like, "You all made mistakes, but before you did that, you stood the watch. Don't ever forget that. You stood the watch, all of you stood the watch." Which made us feel a little better. Everyone asked if we volunteered to go look for Osama if they would let us out. They laughed at us and locked a couple guys down. They also let anyone who had relatives in NYC use the phone all day. Usually you got 2 10-minute phone calls per week, not including calls to from your lawyer. That was huge. Those 10-minute calls were like gold in there. I thought that was awesome. They let those guys call as much as they wanted that day. Everyone that goes with the jury gets more time. Your court-appointed lawyers and even the prosecutors warn you about this because it's so well known. I think it's because it's easier to plead your case to one guy and throw yourself on his mercy than it is to convince 12 lifers that you deserve mercy, since they will all be afraid to show weakness in front of the others. The enlisted thing, well, who do you think is going to be a more merciful jury member? A college-educated, lower-ranking officer like a lieutenant who has maybe 6 years in, or a salty old senior chief who spent 18 years ball-busting his way through the fleet? Some of the stuff guys get locked up for was nuts. My boy P was an E7 who took a box of broken laptop parts that were being thrown away. They were sitting outside for like a week. His ex-wife turned him in, and he got a year. One guy wrote down the credit card numbers of his roommate while the roomie was sleeping and racked up $2,000 in phone sex bills. He got 18 months. Another guy stole one of those Harley-Davidson Edition 4 pickups and got a couple years, but got released because on appeal they said his ADD meant he wasn't competent. The SO stories were nuts, but also disgusting and NMS, so I'll only tell those on request and keep the language work safe, but keep in mind they aren't mind safe by any stretch. Like the guy with the mirrors under the bathroom doors to spy on his own kids in his own house. The guards in Kalikhi wouldn't tune you up, pepper spray, and kick your rear end with sticks, unless it was physical contact or something, so the junior high bullying that went on in Kelly was also nuts. There was this Air Force guy, Aaron M., who was in there for kiddie porn. All the kiddie porn guys, over half the SOs were only caught because they had it on their work computers. That's how smart these guys are. Was this scrawny dude who was like 6 feet 3 inches and was always saying he was allergic to the light. So they let him wear those plastic things they put on you when you get your eyes checked. We used to call him a vampire. Anyway, he used to go off on people for next to no reason, such as what was on TV or someone taking the last box of cereal that he liked. Actually, a lot of people would go off for that. So, to punish him, we would throw water on him, like in The Exorcist, and say, "The power of Christ compels you," and tie knots in his laundry so, after they got washed, he couldn't untie them. One day, he decided he wasn't going to come out of his room. He hid under the bed, so the guards went in and tuned him up and took him to segregation. On his way out, he was screaming something unintelligible, and when he was in seg, he pulled out some of his toenails. When he came back, we would say, 5. 5 toenails, ah ha ha. Like the counting vampire from Sesame Street, you know? And he would fly into these rages and go jerk off in his room. Again, guards would tell you to knock it off, but wouldn't kick rear end unless there was fighting. This other guy, Tom S., also an SO, used to go in his room and rock back and forth violently on his bed any time he got stressed out. Seriously, every time someone made fun of him or stressed him out in any way. He also used to say he was Ozzy Osbourne's biggest fan and would talk about Ozzy all the time, which was pretty weird. He worked in the dishwash with me for a while until he flipped out when one of the female prisoners looked at him weird and he tried to jerk off and got sent to seg. Stuff like this happened daily, that and taking a thing of powder and putting it under the door so the opening was in the room. The bottom of the door was like 3 inches from the floor to prevent flooding, and stomping the bottle, covering everything in the room with a layer of powder. This was called a powder bomb. The other thing guys would do in the middle of the day when the doors were all open was go into someone's cell and take a poo-poo on their bed, so when they got back from work, they had it there waiting for them. That happened to me once as well. The mirror guy used to put mirrors under the bathroom doors of his house and then jerk it while spying on his kids using the toilet. His wife caught him several times, got fed up with it, and turned him into the Air Force cops. He got 36 months. There was a guy named Al that had the most weird-shaped head you ever saw, like a comic book or something. He raped a bunch of kids and got like 17 years. There was an old guy that got like 22 years. We never found out what he did exactly, but it was rumored that he got violent with his child victims in addition to raping them. Remember the guy Randy only got 10 years for loving his own son from age 10 till age 13, so he was over twice as bad if you go by years. This guy James used to sit at our lunch table, sometimes had an aggravated assault charge. His old lady was cheating on him, and he followed her to the motel where she was loving the other guy and beat the poo-poo out of him. He said he took the TV and dropped it on him after he knocked him down. So we'd call him Demolition Man, since Stallone hit someone with a TV on that movie. He only got like a year and a day. They did that extra day thing a lot, too. People said it was to make sure you get a felony record, never verified it, though. Mark was another cool guy. He killed his old lady and the guy she was cheating on him with. He had over 25 years left on his sentence when I left. They kept saying he was going to Leavenworth and he wanted to go, since the rumor was you get your own TV in your cell and extra perks like that. He was always real chill. They had him on tons of medication, so he was always in slow motion. Nice guy, though. Last person you'd ever think to be a killer. There was a women's unit there, too, but you never saw them unless some of them worked in the kitchen with you, and the supervision was strict to make sure there was no hanky-panky. Most of the girls were in there for killing or abandoning their babies. One girl had her baby unexpectedly while she was in the hospital for an unrelated injury and killed the baby by crushing the head with the toilet seat. That's 100% true, because we looked her up on the legal computer. The documents talked about finding a shirt with an imprint of a baby on it in blood, and finding the tiny corpse in a trash can covered in trash in the hospital bathroom. She got 8 years and is out now, as she only had a few left when I was there. Another one left her kids at home alone to meet a dude she met online, and they starved to death. Also verified on the legal computer. The SOs had like this pecking order. They would segregate themselves. The Chili Mo's, child molesters, kept to themselves, and the Digimos, digital molesters, i.e. kiddie porn, kept to themselves. Sometimes the older Chilies would take a young Digi, like, under their wing or something. I don't know if it was part of their treatment program or what, but it was fucking weird, and resulted in more than a few beatings. I think a lot of them were mentally ill or something. They just weren't right. Some worse than others, but if you ever got stuck having to work with one, they were like Rain Man or something. I don't know if that's what made them do their crimes, or if their counseling medication made them that way. Some of them got these shots that are supposed to take your sex drive away. Everyone knew about the treatment stuff they did. They had to keep notebooks, which we would steal all the time to make fun of them. Being around those idiots changes you a lot, too. I have a kid myself, and it's like you're constantly on alert all the time. What is that guy looking at? Is he looking at my son? It makes you paranoid. I don't know what I'm going to do when he starts school. It keeps me up at night sometimes. You see chilly mows everywhere after you're around them.
Do you feel like people treat you differently after you tell then you've served time? On the whole, do you think your prison time was a positive or negative experience? Aye. Do you think you're a better person now than you would have been if you had not have had gone to prison? And if you had a chance to go back in time and not go to prison, would you take it?
People were a little weird when it was right after, as in, hey, this is my buddy, he got out of prison last week. But the farther in the past it got, the less people seemed to mind. Nobody's ever said anything to me, but there have been times when, like, a friend of a friend would say something to the effect of, no, I don't want to go if hiding from Goro is going to be there. Stuff like that. Prison is the most negative experience you will ever have, except combat or the loss of a loved one. You learn to deal with it, and if you cope decent, you make some friends and try to have some laughs when you can, but on the whole, it's not a good time. I think I make better choices in that I don't do crimes anymore and I'm no longer a drug addict. I also think that getting locked up is the only thing that was able to make me stop living that way. It's different for everyone. If I could go back and not get on drugs or do crimes while in uniform, I would. I would not take it away on its own, though. I believe I deserve to get punished. Many people feel like that, although many others feel like they were entitled to get away with everything without consequences.
How did you all go about jerking off? Serious.
You put a towel over your window and get it done before the guard makes you take it off. No porn of any kind was allowed, not even like Maxim or stuff. Right before I got out, they started allowing Maxim stuff in there as long as you were in a tier without sex offenders because it fucks with their counseling or whatever. Those magazines were like gold in there. Trading things was forbidden, but it happened anyway. I had my girlfriend send me those magazines, so once I started getting those, I made a lot more friends pretty quick. The most prized issue was one where the girl from JAG did a spread, since the real-life JAG put most of us in there, Lowell. If you had a cellie, you had to figure out a schedule or something. Nobody ever tried it. But it was understood that jerking off when your cellie was in the room with you would result in a serious beating and ostracism, which is worse than all but the most severe beating.
How was the food?
It sucked dick most of the time, although certain things were good. When I was on night janitor, they would take us night crew in the kitchen and let us make our own stuff at night. That was good times.
When you got out, how did you rebuild your life? Did you have any money or a job?
I was very lucky. All my family and friends were very supportive. I lived with my girlfriend, who was with me throughout my whole bit and off and on since we were in high school. It took a while to get a job. Eventually, I got a job at a call center and worked there for a while, eventually getting promoted to senior manager. Once I had that experience on my resume, I didn't have any problems finding a job and make an okay living now, although not rich by any means. I bought a small condo at age 24, which was cool. Starting next year, I won't even have to claim it anymore, since this state they only ask about the past 7 years after conviction.
I've heard that it's a lot like Basic, but worse. Mind you, it's probably stories to scare the young'uns. But when you asked for permission to do things, was it in proper military fashion? Actually, was anything not in military fashion?
The one in Hawaii was like Basic on steroids. Some of them would make you ask like, "Corporal, request permission to sit in the chair." And they would stare at you for a while before making you repeat it and then saying, "Permission granted." No, wait. Okay, permission granted. If they wanted to be a dick, they would pretend like they couldn't hear you unless you asked like 5 times. However, most of them were cool with you just saying something along the lines of, "Yo, Corporal, sit in the chair." And they would respond with, "Go ahead," or whatever. The young Marines guards that were new to corrections were the worst. because they were scared. I never messed with them. But some guys would try and intentionally make the young or new guards nervous or uncomfortable. That always led to an rear-end kicking or lockdown for that inmate and extra chores and poo-poo for the rest of us, though. You had to maintain your uniform, shave, haircut, shoe shine, etc., just like in the regular military. They would always be telling us, "You're still in the fucking military. Act like it, you idiots." Or some such. Sometimes, though, it would be, "You're in jail, moron. What do you think this is?" Basically, if in a given situation, it would be harder on you to be in the military, you were in the military. If it would be harder on you to be in jail, you would be in jail. They would test the fire alarm twice a day. Sometimes they would make us do marching drills, and we always did the colors morning and night, which was actually cool. This Army E6 taught us some cool marching maneuvers for colors and brought some officers to watch us. They praised the staff, so we got extra TV time that night for a movie. Only bad part was the movie was double impact with Van Damme. In Cali, there was none of that. You still had to line up and stand at attention and march to meals, but everyone just walked. In Cali, there were so many inmates they didn't really mess with the obedience training. You still had uniform and cell inspections every week. And day to day, they would bust your balls if your poo-poo wasn't ironed, or your shave sucked, but it wasn't very intense.
Do you think that military prison is more beneficial compared to civilian prison?
It's apples and oranges, honestly. Military prison is far more beneficial, but that's because they're run very differently and the staff and inmates are very different. For example, in military prison, you have a lot higher staff to inmate ratio, which means way less rapes and gang activity. Everyone in there is a high school graduate or GED with at least some vocational training. Programs are mandatory, and cleanliness and discipline are enforced. Everyone has at least a baseline of physical fitness so that there isn't as big a difference between the strong and the weak. Once military inmates get out, they have a chance at a life because they have some education, some treatment, some skills, and the majority are white. So they don't have to face the quadruple whammy of a record and addiction, being unskilled, uneducated, and racism. I do outreach and Narcotics Anonymous volunteer work with inmates at the state prison out here. In civilian prisons, especially state prisons, the conditions are atrocious. Cockroaches, rats, spoiled food, asbestos, no AC, lead paint, the list goes on and on. What's worse, a low guard inmate ratio means that rape, murder, and assault are everyday realities. Most guys have a fourth-grade education at best. Many are foreign nationals from Mexico that don't speak English. These guys have zero options when they get out, and many turn back to crime. Programs are voluntary, which means many don't get the help that they need. The only reason I got clean was because I was forced to start a program. So when they get out, they're still addicts, which means more crime. Guards in civilian prisons are needlessly brutal, and many bring in dope and contraband to the inmates in exchange for money and favors. So you have people with active addictions while in prison, needles, etc., which means HIV. And when you add that into the daily rapes and consensual sex, you have tons of guys coming in for a minor crime with a 2-year sentence and leaving with an AIDS death sentence. Now, those guys have nothing to lose, so what do you think they're going to do on the outside? Working with inmates in civilian prisons is depressing and heartbreaking. But there are a couple guys who get clean and works their program and make it on the outside. That makes it worth it. But you always know that basically you're pouring 12-ounce bottles of Evian bottled water into the Pacific Ocean and hoping to make it not salty anymore. I guarantee that we will not see any improvement in our prison system or crime rate, our wars on drugs and crime, unless we are willing to totally change the way we deal with criminals and poor people. I don't see that happening because I can't even imagine the amount of money it would cost to completely revamp our corrections, community relations, education, and law enforcement attitudes, which is what it would take. It would probably be like 2 or 3 times what the Iraq War costs, at a minimum. I don't mean to say all this to minimize the responsibility of the individual criminals for what they did. But they don't think like you and me. People get hooked on crack, on meth, heroin, whatever. And they do what they need to do, and that's just real. People have dead-end lives and they want more, and if there's no road for them with bright flashing signs and people flagging them toward it, they're going to take the easy road and just take your poo-poo. And that's just real. It's not right, and it's not an excuse, but that's the way it is, and all the people saying, well, they just need to be responsible and pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Just don't get it, at all. People live in straight-up poverty or with a criminal mindset, and they don't think like that at all. It's so alien it's hard to describe. I didn't even understand it as an ex-con until I got out of prison and started working with these guys in the state prisons. They come from another world. The only two things that are going to stop them from taking your stuff or selling drugs to your kids or killing or raping you is spending a lot of your tax money on fixing them and giving them handouts, or killing all of them. It's wrong, and no one should have to pay for other people being stupid, but that's just how it is. I hate to say it because I'm a big advocate of personal responsibility. I fix myself up without a handout, and I feel remorse every day for my stuff, but that seriously is how it is. It doesn't make sense to most people, but there you have it. Plus, I'm not ready to live in a world where we just exterminate hundreds of thousands of people for a revenge, especially when 85% of it is nonviolent stuff. That's a lot to read, but it's really the best way I can describe it.
We're not even halfway through the first page of this thread, and 11 Labs credits ain't free, so we have to stop for now. If you want me to make more videos from this thread, let me know, and maybe go become Pay Pig on the shitty webcomic Subscribe Star.